the shortest way, the fastest way to go somewhere is in a straight line. Obviously, entrepreneurship is what it is. You will, drift. You will pivot. That it's not a straight line. There will be some moments where you're like, what the hell am I doing? Like, that's not what I want. Where I want it to be. The big mistake that people make is that they wait too long in order to adjust. So they drift too far, and then going back on a straight line, going back on the road is actually a harder task. So the more you can have alignment points along the way. So first of all, one with an annual guideline, and then every quarter you verify that, okay, I'm aligned with my annual guideline. My annual guideline is still, in line with my big picture. And then every 90 days you make sure that the projects you take on are in line, with your annual guideline, and weekly that your actions are actually in line with what, you want to accomplish. So there's always that alignment. You will drift, but instead of having big drifts, well, there will be micro drifts, and then you will realign. And that ensures that, first of all, you work on the right things and that you don't get lost into, in a place that you don't want to be at.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Nick Carrier's Best You podcast. I am super fired up today to have the one and only Dave Ruel join me today. Dave, I just want to start by saying thanks so much for spending the time with me today.
Nick, man, good to be here.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. Well, so I finished your book week and a half, 2 weeks ago now, Done by Noon, How to Achieve More by Noon Than Other Entrepreneurs in a Full Day. And I love learning about productivity, and I love learning about how to get stuff done. And so I by no means feel like I knew everything going into your book, but I feel like I know a decent amount, and I definitely learned a ton from your book. And so those of you guys listening know I'm really into productivity, and I learned a ton here and saw a lot of value, and I'm already starting to apply a lot of the things I already have written out in my rocks, written out in my routines, and trying to schedule those out accordingly. So some great stuff that you have in your book. So I wanted to start off by saying thank you for that. But the first question I want to actually ask you today is, what's currently the most challenging thing for you to master in regards to your productivity?
Oh man, actually, it's funny because I recorded an podcast episode yesterday about it, and I talk about self leadership a lot in the book, and there's 3 layers to self leadership. So self discipline. It's pretty self-explanatory right there. Self-awareness, which is, understanding yourself, but also self-respect. And self-respect is, in some ways, I read a copy, I don't know, let me just go dive in the book, and I can tell you chapter of the book. So it says self-respect is also about honoring the process as you progress along your personal and entrepreneurial journey. Your visions and ambitions need to be in alignment with your core values and truth. You need the courage to understand who you are, honor what you want, and work towards it. And it's really respecting the process. And I've realized that, I'm a very binary guy when it comes to making decision. I'm a yes or no guy. And usually my gut feeling never fails. And for a little while now, I've been, kind of overthinking things, processing things too much with my brain and not enough with my heart. And the truth is, I was, always drifting a little bit, and always realigning. But there was not that true, alignment that felt really, really good. And that's a big part of productivity. It's not one thing or one strategy, but that self-respect. And so I'm on a path right now of letting go of my brain making too many decisions and really started trusting my instincts and my heart, I would say again. So it's respecting the seasons, I guess. And that's where I'm at right now. So right now, this is my answer.
Okay. Nice. No, I like that. I think that there's always a balance of knowing when to trust the brain and when to trust the heart. It's always something that everybody has to figure out for themselves, for sure, on a kind of a case-by-case basis. Next thing to kind of talk a little bit about, your past. In the past, you founded and grew multi-million-dollar companies in the field of health, fitness, and sports nutrition for nearly a decade. And then you say you found the dark side of entrepreneurship that robbed you of your freedom and you felt burnt out and unfulfilled. And so my question is, to that younger version of yourself who was doing that over that decade, what's the advice that you would give to that younger version of yourself so that maybe you didn't feel burnt out or didn't feel unfulfilled? If you only had like 30 seconds to sit down with that person and you had to hammer something home to them, what would it be?
Yeah. I would say entrepreneurship is a sport. And, look at how if you're going to the gym and in the process of transforming your body right now, do the same thing for your entrepreneurial career. And, we talk, and you read the book, Nick, and we talk about a lot about sports performance and there's a lot of analogies between both, and comparisons between sports performance and entrepreneurial performance. And what I realized is that what I've learned earlier, like early in my career, what I had learned in fitness didn't automatically transfer into entrepreneurship. I didn't realize it was, my behaviors needed to be so similar. Right. And it's only when it's like when you go to the gym and you do it all wrong, and all of a sudden you realize, okay, well, I need some structure. And you think that entrepreneurship would be different, but we all do the same thing. We have no structure, and then we realize, okay, well, why do I work all the time without any structure where I can get way better results like having that structure? Like going to the gym, working out 7 days a week doesn't serve you. You're getting actually less results, even though you're working out a lot more. And it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. So I would say, transform your body and apply it to entrepreneurship. I talk about it in the book too. It's simple.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the overall principle is like, if you want to improve at the pace that you want to improve at, then you have to have deliberate action. Like, you have to be very deliberate. You have to be very intentional. You have to have some structure around that. And that's, like you said, true in sports, true in weightlifting, true in entrepreneurship, and really whatever it is. One of the things I want to talk about is, like, so many people, it's funny, they will tell me, you're always so busy. And I'm like, no, I'm not busy. I'm productive. Like, I don't want to, because I think a lot of people will say they're busy, but they're really just always doing something, but not actually getting anything done. And so I don't want to be classified in that same boat with them. And I want to try to make sure that I'm always getting stuff done. And so you talk about in your book about the difference between activity does not equal productivity. And then you kind of talk about the three things that we need to make sure we manage in regards to, like, time, energy, and attention. And those are one of the three most important, like, kind of resources that we have. So I want you to kind of riff on those three important resources and how we can make sure that we manage them effectively.
Yeah, it's a good point, Nick, because we live in a world that glorifies, activity, where it's like the more you do, the more you're perceived that, you are successful or doing, right. And it's not always the case, and I like that you say, like, no, I'm productive. And then it's like, okay, well, what's the difference? Well, there's a huge difference. And at Epic, we have an efficient, approach to productivity, meaning that because when you look at productivity, like, it's output, based on, the input, right? So the output, if you look at it from traditional activity equals productivity standpoint, you're going to have, like, the output's going to be as much as you can produce, and the input's pretty much as much as you can feed the machine. Versus if you look at it efficiently, it's understanding, first of all, what's the outcome? What is the what does it look like? What do you want to accomplish? What's the desired what's the intent? What do you want to produce? And understanding that as an entrepreneur, you have, as you said, three finite resources: your time, your energy, your attention. And that's your responsibility, really, to manage these three resources, that you don't have to use them all to produce the intended, result, the intended outcome. What you need to do is understanding how to really manage these three resources and technically use the least, or I would say not the least, but the right amount, the right mix of resources that produces what you want to accomplish, right? So it's a process, obviously. It's a process that involves, self-leadership, self-discipline, self-awareness, self-respect. But when you look at it this way, it relieves the pressure of, being active all the time and doing and doing and doing. And that doesn't mean that you're going to need to work. And that's why we make it's not about working less for it. It's about working right. Working hard, it's a given. Nothing is, easy. You're not going to go, same thing with the gym. You're not going to go to gym and not train hard. You're not going to sweat and get results. You will need to sweat. That's a given. But I think a lot of people try to outsmart that. They're like, oh, I'm going to work smart. Yeah, obviously you will need to work smart. You will need to optimize, but you need to work hard. You need to work smart. But the key here is working right. What's right for you? What's right for your ambitions, for your lifestyle, etc. And there's no right or wrong answer. There's just a right answer for you. For you, what you want.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And to just touch on that last thing you said, there's no right or wrong answer. It's what is right for you. And that's how I kind of talk about it in regards to getting closer to the best version of yourself. Like, you have to think about what the best version of yourself is. Like, don't change down the best version of somebody else, because I think a lot of times in our world and our society, we identify what success is based off of what somebody else identifies as success is. And so we chase down that, and that leads us down to all kinds of problems. But I really loved, and I had it written down actually, about efficiency literally is like calculating the rate of output per unit of input. And to me, like, for whatever reason, it's, you kind of know that, but until I read it, I was like, whoa, that's like so right. That's so true. And it's really important. But then you also talked about, you kind of have to start off by figuring out what the output is that you actually want to get done, or what it is you want to achieve. And that's kind of, step one of y'all's 4-step methodology, and that's where I'm going to go next. Your 4-step methodology is projection, prioritization, planning, and protection. And so to kind of start off again with the projection thing, how do you go about gaining clarity on what the output should be, on what the best goal for you is that you need to set for maybe your year?
Yeah. So first of all, the way we do it is we set like a long-term big vision. Not goals really, there can be goals obviously, but really more of a vision of where you want to go. Like, where do you want to land? If you picture like a mountain, far away, is this like, you want to go to that mountain, but also what does it look like when you're on top of that mountain and you turn back and you look at what you've accomplished, right? So first of all, you visualize the outcome, you visualize where you're going, but from there the key is understanding that I'm going to need to reverse engineer the journey. And the best way to do it is with what we call an annual guideline. So first of all is understanding you have 12 months in front of you. What do you want to see become a reality within these next 12 months? And we have 5 action steps, 5 goals that you're going to need to list there. They can be quantifiable, but they can, you can see that. You can see where you're going, and then you can adjust to. But so we work in 90-day cycles. So you have that projection, and from there you need to start prioritizing. So first of all, prioritizing your tasks, but prioritizing your projects that you're going to need to perform in order to accomplish, or I would say move towards this, like in line with this annual guideline. And the shortest way, the fastest way to go somewhere is in a straight line. Obviously, entrepreneurship is what it is. You will, drift. You will pivot. That it's not a straight line. There will be some moments where you're like, what the hell am I doing? Like, that's not what I want. Where I want it to be. The big mistake that people make is that they wait too long in order to adjust. So they drift too far, and then going back on a straight line, going back on the road is actually a harder task. So the more you can have alignment points along the way. So first of all, one with an annual guideline, and then every quarter you verify that, okay, I'm aligned with my annual guideline. My annual guideline is still, in line with my big picture. And then every 90 days, you make sure that the projects you take on are in line, with your annual guideline, and weekly that your actions are actually in line with what, you want to accomplish. So there's always that alignment. You will drift, but instead of having big drifts, well, there will be micro drifts, and then you will realign. And that ensures that, first of all, you work on the right things, and that you don't get lost into, in a place that you don't want to be at.
Yeah, no doubt. I really love that, and love how you said how the more alignment points that you can have, the less you'll have drift away, and more you'll get pulled back on course. And I think that's so key. And but I kind of want to go back more into the macro picture, because I think the macro is where so many people don't spend the time in regards to thinking, where is the mountain that I want to go? Because I think people know goal setting is important, and a lot of times they'll set goals, but they'll set goals based off of this month, maybe even the year, but not with the actual end in mind. Like, where do I actually see my business long term, or where do I actually see my career long term? Because there are going to be some people listening to this who aren't entrepreneurs, and they're not sure what they want to do super vast long term. And not necessarily that you have to know exactly what that looks like, but you kind of have to come up with some sort of rough idea. And so again, kind of back to how do you put some sort of pinpoint on the mountain?
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. You can have an idea of where you want to go in your head right now based on your own context, but the mountain can change, for example. You know what I mean? Like, you can look at a mountain and you go, the key is like to decide based on what you know now, based on your context, but based on your life experience or your life ambitions. Okay, how can I draw an image of what I want right now? That doesn't mean that in a year from now, even 90 days, that cannot change, right? That's why we're telling people, like, make the annual guideline exercise answers. We have 13 questions in the book. Answer these questions once a year. And then you're going to realize that, okay, maybe now this year, with another year behind my belt, I see things a little bit differently. And you're going to realize that, most of it's not going to change drastically. Maybe it will if you have the problem. If you have drifted like way too far away from the road, well, maybe yes, you will need to course correct and change things drastically. But overall, if you're doing a good job, let's say, at staying focused and disciplined and aligned, as you go towards a journey, maybe you start getting a new perspective. And next thing you know, well, this is where I'm going, but the mountain right next to it seems now a little bit more appealing based on my experience. Like when you start working out, a lot of people want to start working out to, gain muscle, or lose body fat. And then it might become, they start exercising, they love the lifestyle, they love everything that goes with it. And then now they're like, you know what? I want to run a marathon. I want to, I want to run. And that's fine, because you didn't know before you actually started being active. And it's the same thing in entrepreneurship. I feel like you need to start doing, or in life in general, like you need to start doing, understanding, living, processing, and then gaining new perspective. There's a big, there's a big risk of not gaining perspective along the way. If you're just always seeing things from one lens, like you're not going to be like, you're not going to, I would say, if you're too rigid, if things are too rigid, you're not going to have space to really be fulfilled because you don't allow yourself to evolve within the process. And the journey is where you fulfill your purpose. The journey is a thing. It's not really like being on top of the mountain. Like that's just an alignment point. The real pleasure, the real fulfillment is through the journey and allowing yourself to navigate through it, without getting lost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I couldn't agree more. You said it well, and the analogy with fitness is good. You think maybe when you start doing fitness, I want to lift weights and I love it, and you do that for a couple of years, and you're like, oh, maybe I want to do a marathon, and so that mountain range or that peak of the mountain changes. And if you're looking at a mountain range, you have to pick one kind of peak that you think, oh, I want to go there. And so you start moving, and then you get a little bit closer to that, and you're like, oh, maybe that other peak was better. And then maybe that other peak was better. But you have to kind of pick some peak in the first place in order to start moving.
And as you gain altitude too, you will gain a new perspective where you're going to see that, oh, there's like 100 new peaks behind that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're never going to see that if you don't move forward. You know what I mean? In the right direction. That's a key.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I could talk about that all day long. I get fired up about that. So I love that we brought that up. The next step, though, we talked about projection a little bit. Now I want to go into prioritization a little bit. and talk about the impact matrix that you kind of have driven out. And I think a lot of people who have, probably read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People know the urgent and important thing. And that's, this is somewhat similar, but you talk about the differences of it. But essentially, impact matrix on the vertical axis is impact, on the horizontal axis is effort. And you talk about kind of the 4 different quadrants. I really want you to spend kind of most of the time just real quickly like talking about what are the routines and rocks and where they fit in just for right now. And then we'll talk a little bit more about kind of like how you actually schedule those in a weekly basis.
Yeah, dude, Nick, I love it. And you said it like in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, like Covey uses the Eisenhower matrix, and we kind of make like it's not that it's a bad tool. I feel like it depends on when you use it. And it was, created by Dwight Eisenhower, who was an army general. So if you work reactively, if you're in a context of war, yes, obviously you will need to make quick decisions. The problem is if you work from, if you want to be proactive with your work, it doesn't really work that way. And in entrepreneurship, there's 4 tasks that every single entrepreneur will face every single day. The first task, and we're talking about impact and effort, let's talk about the most impactful tasks that you're going to have in your business. So first of all, you want the most impactful tasks that you can perform are the ones that really move the needle, the ones that that will innovate, the ones where you create new things in your business to make your business grow, So the problem is that when we don't prioritize these tasks, guess what's going to happen? You open the door to reactivity, and now you start being reactive in your business, and all the tasks that you should be doing in order to improve your business, they don't get performed because you're like, oh, I don't have time. You know what I mean? And as weird as it sounds, we're in business business is meant to be grown, and we stop doing the things that actually are growing the business, right? So what we call the rocks. So these are tasks associated with projects that will bring innovation and growth to your company. The second types of tasks are your routines. So your routines are, ongoing tasks that are mandatory for the proper functioning of your business, for the operational well-being of your business. So there's things you probably do day in and day out in your business that you have to do in order to perform. And usually you do them pretty effortlessly. Like there's things you know how to do, so effort-wise it's less, but it's mandatory to do so. And these are, because they're mandatory for the proper functioning of the business, they will have a positive, impact. We call these 2 tasks the power moves. They will be what brings the real power to your business growth. Then when you look at 2 other types of tasks, so the lower impact tasks, you have the reactive tasks. So these are kind of the byproducts of your activity. So, they always happen, something breaks, problem here, customer service issue. I mean, just to name a few, but there's always these type of tasks in your calendar that will fill your calendar. The big problem is that when you operate from a reactive, standpoint, you will, your to-do list will keep getting longer and longer and longer, and you will not have time to work on the power moves or work well on the power moves. So first of all, stop working on rocks, and then, your routines per se, or your tasks that are recurring will not be performed properly. You know what I mean? So this is when you see businesses losing their, I would say, quality. You're losing for example, a good company who used to be good at customer support stops, they stop being good at customer support because they pay less attention on what's really important. So the reactive tasks, which are reactive by nature and kind of the byproducts of your activities, and then the responsive task, which is everything associated with communications. So your meetings, your DMs, your emails, which is actually email management is actually a big problem in today's society. There could be, we talk your meetings, but anything that has to do, or your phone calls, or anything that has to do with communication. And prioritizing the drifters, so the drifters, the reactive and the responsive tasks, that's what's going to make you drift. This is when you're going to start seeing the road, or seeing where you should, the the direction in which you should drive, and you're going to start drifting until your business actually, stops growing, or you're in a place where you're like, I don't want to be there. It doesn't feel good. Being a firefighter is never in your business is never be a good position to be in, right? You want to.
It's not as heroic as actual firefighters.
Exactly, and understanding also, like, how much effort does it need for me to perform these tasks, right? That's another filter. It's like, we talk about time, energy, and attention, but once you understand that, okay, my attention needs to be put on these types of tasks, and based on, and also we have like we show you like the drifting costs of drifting too far away from your power zone, your real zone of genius. Well, guess what? There's a real effort of stretching yourself or venturing into your average or your subpar zone, things you don't really do well, and that you're not interested in. That will have a tremendous effort, or I would say, and it's going to suck your energy.
Yeah.
And in a matter, if you're looking to improve that, if you're looking to manage that properly, you're going to need to understand, okay, well, is this task, how do I feel? Do I feel alive, or do I feel like it's a drain, right?
Yeah.
And understanding that. So the value of, the axis of effort is equally important as the axis of impact there.
Yeah. No doubt. And, you talked about the rocks as being like the innovative things, the things that are going to move the needle more in your business routines, are the things you kind of do on a regular basis that are high impact but low effort. And these other things that are responsive and reactive, those are things that you have to do, but you want to make sure that you kind of put them in your schedule strategically. Because I think every single person, when you talk about these are the things that make you drift, every single person can relate to that. Every single person can relate to the fact that, I was working on this project and I was doing really well, and then all of a sudden I checked my inbox and I was there for 45 minutes, and then I was like, what the heck was I doing? And I couldn't get back in the groove of my project. Or they were sitting down in a groove of doing something, and then they pull up Instagram, and the next thing they know, they've been scrolling up and down for an hour, and they're like, what the hell am I doing? I think everybody can really relate to that and stuff. So it's really important. Like, you give so many actionable things in here, again, in regards to like the order in which to plan these out in your schedule. And that's like one of the biggest things that I've started to take action on over this past week since having finished your book. And I'm not going to dive too much into that because I want people to really get the meat of that when they go get the book. But one of the things that I think is really important that I do, and one of the things that really important that you do, is this weekly review. And you talk when you spend a day and some time looking about the last week and really reflecting on it. So I want you to take a minute or two talking about kind of what day you do that weekly review on, how long is it, what it looks like, and why it's so important.
Yeah, I feel, what gets measured gets improved. That's really the basics of it, and why you have to do these weekly reviews. So it's one thing to understand where you're going. It's one thing to know what types of tasks to prioritize, and that's another thing to plan. But then if you don't review what's been working well for you or what has not been working well, guess what? How will you know if it's actually you're truly achieving the right results, right? And that goes along with and what we talked earlier, Nick, the frequency of alignment checkpoints. It's like every week, check your alignment. Review your annual guideline, review your quarterly. So we call them the quarterly buckets, which are and you can. You'll see the big rocks, the small rocks, and sand analogy, and how we use that for project management. But understanding that, hey, the projects or what I said would be accomplished this quarter is actually being accomplished. So understanding that, there's also the fact of understanding what went. So I said what went well, your victories. Even if it's small things. I think as entrepreneurs, we're really good. It should be fun. The thing is that it's so easy to, when you're in, firefighting mode and you've drifted away too far that you don't know where you are, to see all the negative, that can happen. And that's what's tough about entrepreneurship, and why a lot of people don't even last, because they just get sucked into the spiral of negativity. Whereas there's some wins, there's always wins, there's always things, even if they're small, that should be acknowledged and that should be celebrated. So we ask you, what are your 3 best small wins of the week? And they don't need to be humongous things. It could be just, little thing. So you just list them, and then we ask you to actually say how you will celebrate them, right?
Right.
So finding these little rituals in your life that, that invisible carrot that you can have in front of you that will be, hey, if I do this, or if something happens, like if I have improvement, I will have this reward, right? And we're
Right.
really good at that as humans. When we see a reward, we're going to work a little bit extra. We're going to pay a little bit more attention. So it's doing that. After that, it's understanding, what didn't go that well. Okay?
Yeah.
What didn't go as well this week, and why? It's understanding why and understanding how you will improve. So getting you, giving you opportunities to not seeing like that as a failure or as a hurdle, or like it's a hurdle, but how you can do constructive actions that will make you better. And it's like in sports. You don't overnight become increasingly exponentially better. It's
Right.
little improvements by little improvements by little improvements. And that's how, and you measure that because you have some points, some KPIs. It could be like, if you're into lifting, could be the amount of weight you lift. It could be, if you're running, could be your time, for example. There's measurements, and same thing in entrepreneurship. We also have a small, what we call the self-awareness scorecard. So you need to measure your energy levels, how productive you felt, and your really how you felt overall. So were you satisfied with your week, or how did you feel energetically? Like, let's say you rank yourself 2 out of 5. Well, maybe that's something like you're going to look at it and say, okay, why did that happen? I don't feel 2 out of 5 for nothing. Oh, well, maybe I didn't sleep well, for 2 nights in a row. Maybe my nutrition was off. Maybe this happened. Like, that's going to give you pointers that, okay, this should be improved. And then the next week, well, guess what? You might be looking at more, better night routines, or improving your sleep, or improving your nutrition, things like that. All right. So, or, reducing stress levels, for example. So it's very important to do so. And then, obviously proactively preparing the next week. And once you know where you're going, you don't have to, the key is always to eliminate reactivity and always to promote proactivity. So when you're ready the week in advance of knowing what you're going to do, knowing that there will be things you haven't planned, but you have the space for that, like, you're going to be fine. And it's doing that, over time that will make things improve.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, doing some sort of performance review is something that a lot of people have in certain areas of their life. Like in sports, people always watch film on on how the game went and what went well, what didn't go well. And, a lot of people who work for companies and they're not entrepreneurs have performance reviews with their bosses, but it's like, you need to do a performance review with yourself every single week to evaluate, because like you said, that's the only way to know whether or not you were on track or whether you were off track, what you need to repeat, what you need to avoid, that sort of thing. So I just think that implementing a weekly review is so important. Down to the last couple of questions here. One of the things that you said is so important for people right now, and a big problem for people right now, is how much time they spend in their inbox and their email. And one of the resources that you guys have is called the Inbox Freedom System. And so to give people, if somebody is listening right now and it's the morning time and they're like, I have a crap ton of emails right now, I'm just overwhelmed with how much time I'm going to spend in it, what's like one thing that they can do today, like from the Inbox Freedom System, that is going to immediately give them relief, immediately going to allow them to be more effective in their inbox?
So first of all, so we give, that's a free training we have on our website. You can check it out, but it's beyond the fact of having a specific time every day to answer emails, there's one trick. One, if you want, I'm not a tactical guy, but the one tactic you can do right now is set an auto responder, in your inbox. Say, okay, if you are like, I'm not answering, first of all, set the expectations where they should be. Every day, it's like every day, because I receive a large amount of emails, I only answer emails every day from, let's say 11 a.m. until noon. And then you say, if it's a matter like for example, if you have a business, for me, I'm like, If you want to be, if it's about this, email this person. If it's about this, email this person. If it's an extreme emergency, here's my phone number. I actually give my personal phone number there. So if it's an extreme emergency, people can call me directly. The thing is, what people perceive as emergencies are actually not emergencies. That's why I'm not against, but I don't like the Eisenhower matrix, is that it bases the decision-making on urgency and importance. But for most people, especially who work reactively, everything is important, everything is urgent, and it's a do-it-now situation. And then this is when you start drifting, because now what you're doing is that you're prioritizing reactive tasks, and reactive tasks are drifters, right? So do that. I can tell you, first of all, it's going to, you're going to have clear, people are going to know, it's going to set expectations to when you're going to be answering them, or who they should be talking to. And also making them understand that what are emergencies and what not emergencies. It's going to make them think, right? And so, and the truth is, after a while, and I do that, like I had mine for years and years and years, people get tired of seeing your damn autoresponder every time you email them.
And they'll stop emailing you.
And now they're going to start going by the route that you tell them to go, right? So like, listen, here's how I answer emails. Here are the rules, of communication. And for example, like at Epic, we have a centralized communication system for the team. We don't use emails for communications. There will things that we'll forward to each other and everything, obviously. But overall, the main communication is done through a centralized system. We use software called, Twist. So again, the key is to eliminate reactivity and then over time, gradually optimize that. So within the Inbox Freedom system, we offer you the opportunity to gradually improve your inbox, apply the right filters, apply the right, priorities, creating inboxes within the inbox that will make you overall, achieve, inbox zero on a daily basis. I've been having, I'm on inbox zero every day, and it's been I think created a system about 8 years ago. Wow. And it's just inbox zero. That doesn't mean that I don't have like good number of emails, but they are selected, they're classified. I know where to find them. I know how to attend them. And it works. It's a game changer. It's a game changer just because it allows you to eliminate a lot of reactivity.
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, I know so many people who are like, I've been in my inbox all day and I still have another 100 emails. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't even imagine that. So I know that people will want to jump all over that. Well, before I ask the last question here, Dave, I just want to acknowledge you for being able to kind of make this transition in your career from being the type of entrepreneur who is maybe kind of at it all the time, and then to kind of be able to take a step back and realize things can be done more efficiently and more effectively, and create systems for other people so that they don't necessarily have to go through the same burnout maybe that you did. I think it's super powerful, and it's going to help. It is helping and is going to help so many more people.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I think, these are principles that can apply to, whether you're an entrepreneur or an athlete or whoever, and everything. All the principles are based on, on sports performance, on athletics, on sport, based on what you would do if you were an athlete. Yeah. Right. And it's understanding that and applying that to your life. So you don't have to get injured doing your sport. You can do it, in the right way. We get injured in sport because more than often, accidents happen. But people, for example, get injured because they don't understand how to perform some moves, or they venture into or do things that they shouldn't be doing. And that's what happens. So there's a way to prevent that. And just like there's a way to prevent burnout by working more efficiently and effectively. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Well, you guys need to make sure you go check out Done by Noon, how to achieve more by noon than other entrepreneurs in a full day. I'll have that obviously linked up in my show notes, and you need to check out the Ethic Planner as well. This is something I've started to dive into, as I've told you guys, over this past week. And it's been a game changer how I've been just this past week on how I've implemented stuff a little bit differently into my Google Calendar, and finding place for my rocks first and then my routines, and and then some of that other reactionary and response stuff after that. So you guys go check that out. Make sure you follow Dave on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at Dave Ruel, and I'll have that linked up in the show notes as well. Go to ethic.co to check out.
We have actually a special link for you, Nick, like for your audience. They want to get the free book, ethic.co. So EFFIC.co/best you, and you're going to get a free copy. You have to pay for shipping, but we offer a complimentary copy to your listeners. Nick.
Yeah, ethic.co/best you. And like I said, I'll have that linked up in the show notes, and I could not recommend it more. I know I've stressed it again, but go buy the freaking book, everybody. All right, to get to the last question. So, and your approach to productivity and efficiency is very similar to just like my approach to get closer to the best version of yourself. I think it's really important to start off by gaining clarity on what you think the best version of yourself is supposed to look like. Obviously, that clarity is going to get more and more refined as you go through life. And then the idea is to try to reverse engineer that person into reality every single day. And so I also think that journey is constant and it's unique journey for every single one of us. So my question for you, Dave, is if there are 3 things that you can currently do or 3 things that you can currently work on to get closer to that best version of Dave Ruel that you could possibly be, then what are those 3 things that you could currently do or currently work on?
That's a great question because it's very I think it's very contextual, but I think, there are things that you can always work on. First of all, your discipline, right? And it all goes back to self-leadership.
Right.
I'm going to go back to the three components. So first of all, self-discipline is the ability to really produce consistent, results in your life, building the right habits, the right rituals, the right routines that will bring you, closer to the version of who you want to be. Right. So developing that over time, developing the right habits, routines, rituals is important. People work with you, Nick, they understand, you probably have things that you make them do every single week, every single month. There's these routines. So building that self-discipline, first of all, is number one. No one's going to do it for you. You will be the one executing. A coach can tell you where to go, on the field, but guess what? You're the one on the field, right? Yeah. And you will have to react to it. So that's that part. Self-awareness, which is a never-ending process. Start learning more about yourself. Go on, self-discovery expeditions. Do things you haven't tried before, just to understand yourself a little bit better. And understand that along this journey, you will never fully be 100% aware. You will not 100% understand who you are. And that's what's great about life, is that you're always discovering new things about you. And even though you might feel, I know myself pretty well. Yeah, I know right now, but you will discover new things about you. And that's a beauty. So be open to self-awareness and self-exploration. And number 3 is self-respect. Respect your ambitions, respect your own style, respect your own context. As you said, we're all unique. And, we talked a little bit about that earlier. Ambition appropriation is a huge problem. It's a huge mistake that every single person will make in their life, by looking at someone and say, this is what success looks like. No, you make your own definition of success. You have to define that for yourself. And that definition might change over time. That definition, based on your context, based on your experiences, on life events, will change, and that's fine, but you have to respect that. And I think self-respect is important that way. So I think it's probably the 3 things I would ask people to look into deeply. And guess what? It's self-leadership never stops. It's a never-ending process, and it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, man. Well, couldn't agree more, Dave. 3 great things. Y'all go to ethic.co/best you to get your Done by Noon book. But yeah, Dave, that's all we got today. I appreciate it, man. Nice. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it a lot. Yes, sir.